The role of the bass player traditionally was drive the van, the PA, get the money out of the promoter by non-violent or violent means. However, there's a lot more to bass playing than the practicalities of being in a band or driving the van. And that is to link non-pitched stuff, like the drums here, to pitched things like vocals, guitars, all that. You have to do two things. You have to be the link between the rhythm and the pitch. So you are doing two things at once. Now, Logan here on GarageBand iOS 11, I've set him to play AM Gold at a tempo of 77-ish. I am following the bass drum only. If you listen to the bass drum pattern from the beginning, I'm going to play 2 bars and I'm going to come in and I'm going to play one note every time there's a bass drum. That means that I am locking in with those drums. Now, as Ginger Baker of Cream said, if you've got a bad drummer and a bad bass player, you've got a bad band. And there's a lot of truth in that. You know, when you go and see someone at a gig who's, an older artist, they will always have the best band with them, best bass player and the best drummer, because then the whole thing is going to work. So the bass player and the drummer really are the sort of unsung heroes of a band in that respect. So now if I slow the tempo down, GarageBand will allow you to go down to 40 beats per minute, which is really, really slow enough in order to practice really counting and keeping a pulse. So if I give, Logan's going to give me 2 beats in, because that's quite slow here. I'm going to play the same thing again, and I'm going to try and lock in with that bass, that kick drum. So I'm already rushing that. The idea of practicing this is to play the notes as late as you dare. Takes an awful lot of concentration to make. I'm actually reading the oscilloscope trace on here a little bit just to make sure I know where those kick drums are. But once you've played with that a few times, you gradually sort of remember what's happening. Now, of course, this is a GarageBand drummer, but it is very human and realistic. But a real drummer will be experimenting and doing different parts, or doing sort of, a different fill for the verse or the chorus, or a slightly different drum beat. And you can practice that with this as well, because you can program this to be a little bit different. So if I have the kick drum a little bit busier, I'm just going to turn the tempo back up. So this is a good thing. It's a good thing for your ear as well, because if you just tell GarageBand to, play something, you don't know what it's going to play. It's going to be a drum beat in 4 time. As you can hear with Logan playing AM Gold, there's quite a lot of space. We like space. Space is a good thing. Now that means that every note that you deliver on the bass must have a clean ending and a clean start. Now, you can stop the note with your right hand, but you have a little there. Or you can lift it with your left hand, which gives you a slightly softer finish to that note. So working on the entry and the exit of that note really helps gel that drum kit together with your bass. How long each note lasts on the bass is also important. If we listen to the 8th note pulse there, so if you're going to play a note, it should be in multiples of those 8th notes. 1, 2, if you bring the note off between two of those 8th notes, it sticks out, and therefore the rhythm suffers with that drum kit. So 2 beats in. It then allows Logan the space to do the rest of the drum rhythm there, the hi-hats and everything. It hasn't got a bass note. If I played out of time, or rather all the notes lasted the wrong time, as it were, it sticks out. And some of those entries were a little bit suspect as well. So it's so important. If you've got you and Logan are locked in, it makes all the difference. So as I said, with the left hand, you can lift your finger slightly off the note. Ooh. And make sure you're right behind the fret as well. Now, the other thing you can do, of course, I'm just playing with a kick drum at the moment, nothing else. So you can do other things, like play something with the snare as well. Maybe you could do a higher note on the snare. Something of that sort. So while you can go on the internet and learn lots of bass riffs and learn the mechanics of how each one works, when it comes to doing a bass riff of your own, you will be having to look at the drums as well in constructing that riff to make sure that chart-topping riff that you're going to write and record actually goes with that drum kit, because it's really important. So you can also play fewer notes. You could play just one note on each half note. Notice that 4th note I brought forward to go with that kick drum, so it wasn't actually on the beat, because it can stick out if I just do that for you. So you can hear if I put that note on the beat, might not work as well. Sorry, let's play it with the beat. Not gelling as well. It's taking something away from what Logan's trying to do for my tune. The other thing to do is to play on 8th notes continuously. You can hear hear that I muted each eighth note as I was going. You could also have a constant eighths running without damping. And it's a good idea to have that at 40 beats per minute as well. Try that one, because that really gets the middle finger and the index finger really even. And you can hear that there's slightly different sounds as well, because they're actually playing slightly different parts of the string. But the sort of exaggeration would be this. It's kind of that, but more subtle. And of course the strength of your fingers, your middle finger's bigger than your index finger, so it might end up being slightly louder. That's not a bad thing. But also to try and equalise the levels as well. There's all sorts of things to think about when you're playing along with this. So Logan's going to give me 2 beats in at 40 beats per minute. Changed the orientation to smooth playing and started rushing that. It's just a lot of practice at those sort of slow tempos. Now that doesn't mean to say that a higher tempo is not valid, but of course it is. Now if Logan's going to play now 171 beats per minute as I've just set on here, maybe you could do slightly less and just drive that bass line along a bit. So here's 2 bars in. So there we go, there's something that might go with that line that's a bit faster. I could just do the constant eighths, or so Firebird. Just pick a rhythm and see what happens. It's best to slow the rhythm down initially. Maybe let's have 100 or something, just so you can hear the drum beat naturally before you start. The other thing is to do something over the fill as well. I can see that Logan's put a fill in bar 4, so I'm going to listen to this first, and then bar 5 to 8 is the same. Whatever you have to do, whatever you do with the drums has to work really well. Also with that fill, don't forget a drummer's going to be quite precious about their fills. They're going to think, oh, I've worked this one out. They don't want some bass player going all over it. So it could be that you could leave the fill a little bit sparse, more sparse. So bar 3. You could do something that's maybe held while the drummer's doing a fill. Listen in depth to a lot of stuff and sort of try and work out what the bass player and the drummer are doing together. And as a bass player, if you really are locked in with those drums, so you and the drummer are working really closely, you're really in business.